everyone, and welcome to the Vintage Company. My name is Julie and I'm a corporate historian. And every video, I take a look at a different vintage consumer product and the story behind it. And today's video is about alarm clocks. Now, I have been thinking a lot about alarm clocks in time recently because we just had daylight savings time. And I remember when I was a kid having to go and set all of my alarm clocks back the night before. Nowadays, my cell phone is my alarm clock, and I don't have to worry about it as much because it does it automatically. But today I wanted to look back at the history of electric alarm clocks, specifically Telechron's Telalarm Jr, a popular alarm clock from the 1940s. The story of Telechron begins in the 1910s with an inventor named Henry Warren, who wanted to create a reliable clock. His first attempts used batteries, but at the time the lifespan of batteries was limited to days, if not hours. And as the battery died, the clock would run slower. So Warren turned to electricity. In 1918, he patented a self-starting synchronous motor. The motor ran on alternating current, which had become the prevailing form of electricity in the United States. The synchronous motor meant that Warren's electric clock required no springs, weights, or pendulums to operate. The hands were instead driven by the motor. The clock would run as soon as it was plugged into an electric socket. But although Warren's electric clock was more durable than his battery-powered versions, testing revealed that it wasn't as accurate as he had hoped. Warren recalled, "The first crude motor was connected by tiny gears to the hands of a clock which had a small dial. Then followed weeks of observation to determine the behavior of this clock, which was connected to the Boston Edison system. It was off as much as 10 to 15 minutes per day." Warren's clock was designed to run on a steady 60 cycles per second of alternating currents, the amount of current that was promised by his local electric company, Boston Edison. As it turned out, the current was often running either above or below 60 cycles per second, causing Warren's clock to be either too fast or too slow. To solve this problem, Warren would both need to convince the Boston Edison company that there was in fact an issue and that he could solve it with something called a master clock. The master clock had two hands, one hand operated by a pendulum that was manually adjusted based on the time provided by the National Observatory. The other was operated by Warren's synchronous motor. If the two hands were together, then Boston Edison was providing exactly 60 cycles per second of current. If the synchronous motor hand fell behind, then the speed of the generators was increased to bring the current back to 60 cycles. Boston Edison grudgingly agreed to install Henry Warren's master clock, and the consistent current made Warren's electric clocks extraordinarily accurate. Warren named his clock Telechron, after the Greek word for tele, for far off or at a distance, and chron, meaning time at a distance. Soon other electric companies followed suit, installing Warren's Telechron master clocks across the country. In 1928, the Los Angeles Times reported, "Correct time over the same wire that lights your home and runs the vacuum cleaner is announced by the Los Angeles Gas and Electric Corporation. This time service is made possible by the use of the Telechron, a new timepiece resembling the ordinary clock to all in outward appearance. That's as far as the resemblance goes, however. It requires no winding, is self-starting, and will run as soon as plugged into an electric socket, and will continue to run as long as the power is on." Sales of electric clocks grew at a rapid pace, from 87,000 in 1927 to almost 4.3 million in 1937. Sales of spring-wound clocks declined. One newspaper noted, "Only a few years ago we had to depend upon springs to keep time. If someone forgot to wind the clock, Johnny and Mary were tardy for school. Father was late arriving at work, and the whole household was upset. But today, thanks to the electric power companies, winding clocks and keeping their speed regulators adjusted is a thing of the past. Spring-wound clocks are as old-fashioned as the doorbell with a long wire, which, when pulled, set a little bell to jingle back in the house. In 1926, Henry Warren renamed his company the Telechron Company, and over the next 3 decades, the company would produce over 700 different models of clocks. Among them were many notable firsts, including the illuminated clock, the red power loss indicator, the repeating alarm, the clock radio, and perhaps most significantly, the snooze button. The Telechron clock I have is the 7H135, the Telalarm Jr. Manufactured between 1946 and 1950, the Telalarm Jr. was the smaller version of Telechron's Telalarm alarm clock, which, with nearly 665,000 models sold, was one of Telechron's most popular models. The Telalarm Jr. featured an ivory color plastic case, brown numbers on an ivory numerical band, and a dark tan background. Like many Telechron clocks, the Telalarm Jr. has a power loss indicator on its dial. An early challenge of Telechron clocks is that if there was a power outage, the clock would stop. As soon as the power came back, the clock would resume. Thus, the owner might not realize there had been an outage and the clock's time was wrong. To solve this problem, Telechron added the power loss indicator, which turns red to let the owner know that there has been an outage and the clock needs to be reset. The Telalarm Jr. featured a control-a-tone alarm, which could be adjusted from loud to soft. As noted, I won't let up till you get up. You can regulate the exclusive control-a-tone alarm loud or soft as you please, but Electric Telalarm Jr. won't cease ringing until you wake up and stop it. And the silent Telalarm Jr. promised sweet dreams. Ever have to muffle a clock in the closet? Or lose sleep over its insistent tick? Then this noiseless electric Telalarm Jr. is the clock for you. No winding, no oiling, no regulating either, and the control-a-tone alarm keeps ringing until you shut it off. The Telalarm Jr. was also available with illuminated dial hands and numbers, as well as a glow-in-the-dark version with a phosphorescent case. Combined, there were nearly 1 million Telalarm Juniors sold. During its heyday, Telechron electric clocks were marvels of Art Deco design, made from bakelite, glass clock crystals, and solid brass. But following World War II, Telechron relied more heavily on thin plastic cases, plastic clock crystals, and brass plating to keep prices low. And the innovation of the synchronous motor became overshadowed by longer-lasting batteries and more accurate quartz movement clocks of the 1960s. General Electric, who had first acquired a half interest in Telechron in 1917, purchased Henry Warren's share and gained full ownership of the company in 1943. At first, General Electric continued to manufacture clocks under the Telechron brand, but in the decades that followed, the Telechron name fell into disuse. After changing hands several times, the Telechron company shut down in 1992. Although parts of the company still exist today, including the Electric Time Company, which makes clocks for towers, buildings, and posts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look back at Telechron and the Telalarm Jr. If you like this video and you want to learn more about the history of companies and their products, please consider giving it a like and subscribing below. And if there's a vintage consumer product you'd like to hear me talk about, please let me know in the comments. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.